Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Internet Friends, the episode where three millennials have an existential crisis and have to talk about our feelings for an hour and a half.
Oh God, I have to talk about my
Yes.
feelings today.
Finally,
Oh,
a podcast for me.
Well, Seth normally talks about his feelings on TikTok, but I guess the only feeling he has left is horny. So,
yeah. You saw that video.
of course, I saw the video. I don't stalk you guys on social media whatsoever.
Well, now I'm disappointed.
Well, you just barely made a public profile, Brie. You haven't posted anything, so I'm like just kind of like I'm just sitting here waiting now.
So
Just
your public
refreshing,
profile.
yeah.
Anyways, what have you guys been up to this last week?
Just watching Clone Wars.
Same.
That was a lot of watching to fit into a week.
So
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, I want to publicly apologize. I forgot how long those seasons were.
Too long, in fact.
The show has spent so long as like mine and Emily's like comfort show of just like leaving it on in the background that like I completely forgot literally just like that the seasons were like 22 plus episodes.
Yes. Full
And
disclosure, I did
was
not finish it.
Well, I wasn't expecting you to, but I was just like, okay. Maybe asking for 2 seasons was a little bit much.
I was only able to get through one season.
Yeah, I got through most of one season, and I watched the movie, so.
Good. Very good. All right. Well, so I guess that leads us into kind of the homework session, which was my pick, which was Star Wars The Clone Wars. So, yeah, I picked this mostly as, we talk a lot about my Star Wars fandom and, how I have a very shaky relationship with Star Wars these days. But Clone Wars has been kind of like a staple, even like really pre-Disney merger, and it's kind of like stayed very consistent and been a thing that like a lot of people in the Star Wars community will point to as like a thing of just like, hey, if you want good Star Wars, go here. It comes with a lot of caveats, to say the least. And so
That Jar Jar Binks episode was rough.
Which
All
one?
the Jar Jar Binks ones are rough.
The first
Padme
one.
ones.
So I will say that the thing that about Clone Wars, the reason why it was one of the few things that got to stay canon after the Disney merger is because George Lucas was directly involved. Especially in the first season. So I think in the first season he was just like, come on, we gotta make Jar Jar work.
And he doesn't.
Still
doesn't.
It still doesn't work.
Yeah, I rewatched Phantom Menace not long ago, and I was surprised that I didn't hate Jar Jar as much as I used to, and then I watched this, and I was like, oh no, I still hate him.
Honestly, I would argue that Jar Jar is worse in the Clone Wars than he is in Phantom Menace.
I think that's a fair assessment.
All right, so so I guess aside from the Jar Jar Binks thing, Brie, kind of what are your thoughts as like the younger Star Wars fan, even though you're older than us?
Yes. So I have a lot of thoughts. The first thing is that I am surprised how much I enjoyed it. I think overall, very good show. The season is way too fucking long, and there's a lot of filler. So much filler. Every time Padme shows up, I'm like, oh, so this episode doesn't matter. Cool. Awesome. Because all she does is get kidnapped, and then Jar Jar is there to be annoying. So those episodes were very hard to get through.
Again, George Lucas was involved in this season.
But I will say, I also, being my neurodivergent self, it has taken my everything to not say Roger Roger after everything because I am obsessed with those. I'm just like, Roger Roger. They're so cute. I love those droids so much. And they're
New
hilarious.
audio tech unlocked.
100%. I was mentioning to my class today. They're like, you could say it. I was like, don't give me permission. I'll never stop. So, Roger Roger. It's so cute.
It's really funny because I feel like one of the things people mostly hated about the prequels was the droids, which is funny because like
they're hilarious. I love them so much.
I love droids.
They're a riot. They're so cute and adorable. They're just they were my favorite part, to be honest. I did also want to say that Count Dooku is a big dumb nerd, so that is my official. Every time he makes a plan, it's based on easily verifiable information. He's like, and granted, this was the movie, but he's just like, yeah, Jabba, the Jedi's killed your son. And it's like, okay, but his son is still alive, and he's gonna find that out super fucking quickly, you fucking nerd. So it's just like, and that's all of his plans. It's just like, it's a very shitty plan. I'm like, how are you in charge of everything? You're real dumb.
Yeah, a funny thing about the show, and I think Star Wars in general, and like this is kind of a prequel problem, is that like technically all their plans are designed to fail because their plans are also the Republic's plans and like the weird political stuff behind the scenes going on. But no, it's like very interesting, and like it's funny that you say like, you know, obviously there's a lot of filler and stuff in here. Honest, like when I pitched this, I like said like the first season is not the worst season, but it is like the season that is the most slog. Like the subsequent seasons, like they have more tighter arcs and like what they want to do kind of thought out, whereas the first season's just like, we don't know if this is gonna go or not, so we're just kind of just gonna throw stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like terrible. Honestly, in general, like I wish it was like a 15 episode season, or like somewhere in that range would probably have been perfect, because like there's a lot of good information there. It's just some of the information then got repeated, like a lot of like xenophobia is bad, guys. It's like, yes, I know you said that already. So,
that is a
I
problem
learned
with
this
the
lesson already.
yes.
Yeah, like that's been a problem with the show, and like I said last week, there's like, because it doesn't technically happen in chronological order, like I said, like they'll kill a character and then like you'll see that character again in like 2 seasons and it's not really explained how that character's still there, and there's like a lot of like out of order stuff that they do that like
Who needs linear storytelling?
I mean, Quentin Tarantino got away with not doing it forever.
Very true.
True. Very true.
But regardless, like, you know, it is kind of a difficult show to like, I feel like, get into, especially if you're not already in like the Star Wars fandom. Like getting into this show is like very, very difficult, but like once it gets going, like it does get a lot better. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it enough to where like you feel like you could continue watching it, just not necessarily as a homework assignment.
Well, and that was something that surprised me, because I'm definitely someone who has fallen out of love with Star Wars. Watching this, being like, oh shit, yeah, I love this. I love Star Wars. Like, I forgot that.
Yeah. And I think the main part of it is just like, it does the thing that specifically Star Wars did right in the first place, which is just like, you give a shit about the characters.
Yes.
Yeah. It was nice to have an Anakin that I actually cared about instead of what we got on screen.
That is exactly like why I tell people, is like, look, I'm not going to defend the prequels. I'm never going to do that. But, you know, Clone Wars at least makes it to where like you can at least understand them better. And like it's one of those weird things, because I talk about how like if you watch the prequels in a vacuum, they're bad movies. Like, you know, the time jump, like most of the most interesting thing that happens to these characters happens off screen. You do not see any character development from anybody whatsoever on screen, because there's always huge, massive time jumps. You don't see anybody's relationship develop. It's like, hey, Padme, I haven't seen you in 9 years. You want to get married?
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to marry Hayden Christensen?
I mean, I would, but that's a completely separate issue.
You're like, that's
also,
personal.
real quick, since Padme keeps being brought up, I love that her character model has the same outfit that was like torn apart in Attack of the Clones, because that implies that she liked that outfit enough that she went and replaced it after that movie. And I just like that. I don't know why.
Which is funny, because her entire character was based around just like every time she's on camera, she's going to have a different outfit.
Yeah. Oh, that first movie. The looks, that is one good thing about the first movie, is her looks. Like, she is rocking a fit.
And I've never seen that one, so damn it. Maybe I'll go back and watch it. But I will say, one of the things I really enjoyed about this, especially because I have a very like minimal relationship with the prequels, like it is nice to see Anakin like as a normal human being, and also like, I don't know, just he's a nice person. Like one of the things that I've seen in like a lot of like deep dives about his character is that like what his tragic flaw is that he protects the people he loves at any cost. So like there's not like a I don't know, a quick like, oh, clearly he's evil and he'll always be evil. It's like, no, he was actually a pretty good guy. He just fiercely protected the people he loved, and that took a turn at some point. So it's kind of nice to see just that he was like a person, like not just a caricature of evil guy. Like he got to have a relationship with all of these people, and he was very well respected and well regarded, and went against orders a lot because to protect people he loved, to protect fucking R2-D2 in that one episode. Like he wanted to get him back, which he didn't have to, but it was important to him because he loves R2-D2. So, which I know as a Jedi is kind of a I don't know. I know they're not supposed to do shit like that, but it's nice. Well, it's also like looming a dread because like I keep forgetting that he's a bad guy. So it's kind of nice to see him in the setting where he's like, I'm like, oh, he's the hero of the story, and I'm like, oh, but he won't be eventually. It's just kind of at the back of your mind the whole time. It's like, oh, when does he turn bad? He's so good right now.
And that's some of the problem with some of the episodes where like, and it's a problem with the prequels in general, where like, you know, they tried to build tension of like, oh, what's going to happen? It's like, we all know what's going to happen.
Yes.
At the end of this, like the Republic becomes the Empire and he becomes Vader. We all know how this ends.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
and he was weird in those movies, so it was like very like I'm like, of course this guy's gonna be evil. He's a big fucking weirdo. So
yeah, exactly.
But in this, he's very sympathetic.
Yeah. And like they established that in the like movie where it's just like Yoda's just like, this is more or less giving him Ahsoka as a Padawan as a test of like he needs to learn how to let go of these things. He needs to learn how to let go of people, and that's basically Anakin's biggest problem, is that he's possessive but also protective, which you know.
You need to learn to not care about people. Here's a child to take care of. I like that.
Just to have you like get used to the idea of not taking care of them. They're also going to be a child soldier.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's 14 on the front fucking lines. I was like, is this normal? Jedis are kind of fucked up.
That's actually a theme that gets explored in later seasons of just kind of like, are the Jedi the bad guys? Because going back to
Sorry, that had never hit me when watching it, because I didn't realize I had seen a good handful of these episodes before. But then in the live action, the Ahsoka series, when you see young Ahsoka on the battle lines in live action, I was like, oh shit, this is fucked up.
She's a kid. Bad. She's a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a short series that they came out with, Tales of the Jedi, which follow Dooku and Ahsoka basically through kind of like, you know, their younger years. So like you see like young Dooku going from like Jedi Master training Qui-Gon to, you know, going full Sith, and then showing like Ahsoka from when she got found by the Jedi all the way through up until episode 3. And it shows kind of like the hi, welcome to being a child soldier. But like it shows like a scene where like Anakin basically has her train with like clone troopers where they're attacking her, which will kind of come back in later seasons. But we're basically like, because she survives Order 66, it's because like she was trained to understand how clones would tactically go against her. But like at the same time,
OP. That's fair. She's OP for a 14-year-old because she's fighting that assassin all the time. Like I thought about that in the first couple episodes. I'm like, this is a trained assassin. It is Count Dooku's like top assassin that she is against right now, and seems to really not be having that much trouble with it. I was like, but also Dooku's kind of an idiot, so maybe she's not that strong. But
I had that same thought when she was fighting Grievous in that one episode, like 3 or 4 episodes in.
Yeah. Have you guys watched the? I'm sure Seth maybe has. I'm not sure about you, Brie, but the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, like the 2D animated thing that like came out right before Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I watched it a couple times.
So like, there's like an entire joke kind of around that where it's just like the reason that that's no longer canon is because it made General Grievous look too cool and badass. And like same thing with like Ventress and Dooku. It's just like no, these guys aren't allowed to be competent.
Yeah,
they
I remember that
big,
too.
Dumb idiots.
I remember watching the 2D animated one before Revenge of the Sith came out, and I was like, I can't wait for more General Grievous. And then the movie came out, and I was like, it sucks.
Basically, yeah, that's kind of how that went.
Does he suck in the movies?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Also, this has been said before, but why not just crush him? Just use the Force and just,
Well, that's what they did in the Tartakovsky film, like right before.
It's true. Mace Windu does it.
But see, like that's another thing. It's just like, oh well, Mace Windu can just basically fucking wipe out a droid army just by
with his
flicking the
fist.
Force at them. Yeah, it's just like no, you're making them overpowered. Like we can't like just suddenly commit a genocide on them and have it make sense. Yeah. So,
I liked how stylized it was at points, and then I would see a super battle droid or a droideka and be like, "Nah, I wish they had gone closer to the movies with those designs."
Yeah, I mean, with the kind of the animation style they did in order to simplify it, everything's more or less pre-designed, set piece, and then you have the character models more or less through. But the one thing I think they did really well is that, they had basically the camera in terms of animation, like really kind of set to like how George Lucas would frame a shot for the most part. Like it had very much like that cinematic feel and like kind of stuff. So I really appreciated how they do that. But like the 3D animation is very, very simple and rudimentary to say the least.
Yeah.
They add more texturing and more lifeness in later seasons. I think after season 3 they update the character models a little bit more and they add a little bit more, and then season 7 which is the final season that they did like years later, like is like really great animation. But
I've seen some clips of season 7 and it does look beautiful.
Yeah, so I would encourage you guys to in your own time stick with it, because it like season 2 is where it starts to pick up a little bit better. You get introduced to more interesting characters and some things get fleshed out. Season 6 is the season you can skip if you really want to skip it, because that's right after the Disney merger.
Oh.
And so season 5 is basically where they left off. Season 6 was basically a lost episode season, so like there's just kind of like a lot of nonsense and doesn't really matter. And then season 7 is like, this is what leads into episode 3. So
I'm definitely going to keep watching it. I did want to ask, because I feel like you might have briefly mentioned this. Was this show intended for children or for a younger audience, or was that never the case?
So it premiered on Cartoon Network originally.
Mm-hmm.
And so technically it was, but I think its premiere and time slots were like for when it like was coming up to that like late Toonami slating, kind of like this is where you're getting like more kids who could stay up late. But especially as you get into later seasons, don't necessarily know if I would recommend this for kids.
Honestly, even this season, I thought there was some heavy stuff. So, like, especially a lot of political drama, like a lot of strategy and war. So I'm like, which part of that is for kids? And also, there's an episode, I forget which one, but they come up to the base and there's like clone and droid heads on spikes. So I was like, oh, for the kids. Like, I can't imagine that it would be like that.
And there's a lot of stuff in the later seasons that is like turning that up to the nth degree, like certain characters decapitated because George Lucas. And there's a common like joke of just like drinking game, let's watch Clone Wars and take a drink every time Anakin commits a war crime.
Yikes.
Which is often.
Yeah. So but yeah, so I'm glad you guys liked it. Hopefully you guys can continue to watch it in your free time. I do think it is a great way for anybody who maybe is, like Seth, maybe fallen out of Star Wars a little bit, of just kind of remind themselves like, oh, this is like what was good about Star Wars and like things that you can really appreciate about it. And maybe also understanding it's like, hey, maybe George Lucas wasn't that great at character development, but God, could he do great visuals and come up with great like scenery and great, creating a great universe to kind of play in.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, I will say that was my biggest thing. Like, I don't find the Star Wars universe super interesting. I like the reason I waited so long to watch it is because like I just find space very boring in terms of like just shows and stuff. I just feel like
it's the final frontier, Brie.
Yeah, and it's boring.
Wrong series.
Well, especially in the context of the movies, like I feel like there's so much like background noise where it's like, wow, look at that weird looking alien. We'll never tell you anything about it. Like it's very cursory. It's not very interesting. Whereas like I got introduced to Mass Effect where like they really flesh out a lot of those species and things like that and like the political drama. Like I got really interested in that and I was like, oh, why isn't this working for me in Star Wars? It just like, and I think it's because the main movies don't go as much into detail in it or along like this dug into it a little more and I got to see like different I don't want to say the word species but different like races and things like that.
I think species is fair in this case.
Is it species? I'm just like they're not animals. I don't know. But yeah,
we're going on space logic here, but no, that's actually like an interesting point because George Lucas very notoriously would just like put together whatever the props department did and the puppeteers department did and then like put it in the movie and then people like, oh, tell me about this character, and he's just like, it's like whatever that is.
Yeah, it's
like,
in the background. Who cares?
That was a great Lucas.
I'm just gonna throw out a random piece of lore here. It's like Kermit the Frog but slightly throatier. That's kind of like that's how you do George Lucas.
I love it.
But yeah, no, George, go ahead.
In the cantina scene in the original edit of A New Hope, before he went back and redid everything, there's just a person wearing like a Halloween store wolf mask.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's just like background noise, and I'm like, whereas like again, Mass Effect, like you got to learn about like every single thing that you came across, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is a real universe that like has real issues in it. Like whereas Star Wars just felt like just background the whole time, whereas like this kind of dug more into it, and I actually got to like care about different people from different like races and species and things like that. So I'm like, this did it for me. Maybe this is what I needed to watch the whole time. So thank you.
And Lucasfilm was also very bad about that because once the merchandising side of it started really raking in money, like they had to start coming up with backstory for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's where a lot of extended canon came up. Like we're gonna have to write a whole backstory about the Rancor Keeper. We're gonna have to explain like what this race does and all this kind of things. Like they basically tried to turn it as much into a cash cow as they could. And like a lot of it was completely nonsensical.
Good.
But isn't that fantasy in general? Just complete nonsense?
Just fun nonsense. So yeah, you're right.
Well, we now live in the era of fan fiction where basically it's just like, like if we don't have to explain something to it, somebody out in the corner is just going to write a weird like sex novel about it like on AO3 and just call it a day.
Didn't AO3 get shut down? Or isn't it being shut down?
You might be right.
I haven't heard anything about that.
I saw a single TikTok about it.
Oh, because people are binding those books now. That's the newest like fan fiction thing. Have you heard that people are printing out fan fiction and they like bind the books and they sell them on Etsy, which is like super fucking illegal. So
yeah, I'm not gonna bring up the fact.
Amazing, though.
I'm not gonna bring up the fact that the stuff I bought for Emily for her birthday were bookbinding materials and equipment.
You are part of the problem.
Well, my wife's part of the problem. I just enabled.
Accessory.
That'll hold up in court. Yeah.
You're just an accessory to a crime. That's fine.
Yeah, it's saying it's not shutting down, but apparently it crashed for a few days. But there's nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing.
And people freaked out.
Mm.
Yeah, but regardless, I'm not surprised that there are people who are, maybe physically archiving, fan fiction, especially considering the fact that, things get shut down. Speaking of things getting shut down, segue to our next topic.
Oh,
seamless.
That was smooth.
I pretend I know what I'm doing when it comes to hosting. So this week it was announced that Rooster Teeth, the longtime production company known for internet sensations such as Red vs. Blue and Ruby, is being shut down by their parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery, my former employer. For full disclosure. They are currently in the process of looking for a buyer for some of their properties like Ruby, Red vs. Blue, and Gridlock. They are still maintaining their current podcasting network. However, they are looking for a buyer for the podcasting network. Main reasons
I forgot that they did Ruby.
Yeah, they did Ruby. And so they are talking currently about doing that, and now I'm trying to get back on topic.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, so they're trying to sell.
They're looking for a buyer.
Yeah, they're looking for a buyer for their podcasting and many different properties. The main reasons that they say that they are shutting it down is like one, Rooster Teeth was never really profitable, which doesn't surprise me. On top of also the fact that basically monetization, viewer habits, and everything else has more or less kind of changed, and so basically it just doesn't make sense to keep it running. Rooster Teeth initially sold to Full Screen, which was an ML or MCM at the time, and basically after they had sold off, it basically became a corporate football, basically passing hands before being bought out by AT&T and Warner Brothers, and so they also got caught up in the Warner Brothers Discovery deal, and so that's basically where we kind of ended up. So Rooster Teeth's interesting for me. I grew up a big Halo fan, and so Red versus Blue was a very big part of like my early teens, to say the least. I remember watching that very much. I remember being on the original Rooster Teeth site, and like I probably spent more time on that than I did MySpace back in that like social media era. Obviously, they kind of grew out of that. They came up with other things such as Ruby and some of their podcasts. They were very much personality driven, as much of online internet video was at the time. And they also had quite a bit of controversies that they had to deal with throughout the years.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. I mean, so some of the main controversies that they've been in recently had to do with, work culture and basically being in a toxic work environment, especially for people of color and the LGBTQ plus community, which, again, yeah, so there's been a lot of stuff that has come out about that in recent years. There was also the controversy where two of their hosts had sexually explicit images leaked online, and then it turned out that one of the reasons that those images exist is that somebody was grooming underage fans.
Oh, good. Great.
Which, not great. That was kind of like where I was like officially just jumped off.
Those are rough controversies too. Like those, like when you mentioned those, I was like, okay, like I mean, shit happens all the time, but I was like, those are fucking bad. that's
yeah. And so that on top of having big corporate ownership, they are forced to move in certain kind of corporate directions, and a lot of fans kind of just like, this isn't as good as it used to be, or not as fun anymore. And then of course you have the changes of the online landscape, so it's one of those things where like nobody seems very surprised at this development.
Yeah, I'm looking at the channel now, and their views have been terrible for a very long time. I'm surprised that this took this long, because like for how many subscribers they have, their view count is terrible, like embarrassingly low. I follow some like financial people, and they have more views on like casual like budgeting videos than these do on like the content they're regularly making. These are, especially, they have like 9 million subscribers, and these are like under 6K views on a lot of them, if that, that's embarrassing, honestly. So.
Yeah, that's real bad.
Yeah, and a lot of their subscriber growth happened from, again, like selling to Full Screen, where they were like building up things through Ruby and Red versus Blue and everything else like that. And so once you get a corporate entity in and they start telling you, like, hey, you have to start making this kind of content, you got to work with these kinds of sponsors, we need you to do certain kind of things, and you just see that viewership fall off. And this happens a lot with production houses that like got developed on YouTube, or at least YouTube like platforms, where basically they might have built something up really, really good initially, but once they start kind of going more corporate, Emily said this a long time ago, she was just like, they should have never sold to a corporate entity, because that basically guaranteed that they were going to just eventually just bottom fall out on it. And she's right.
Has that worked out for anybody who's done that? Honestly,
no.
Very few.
Like YouTube wise.
Well, there's the I don't know if you guys have been following what's been going on with Smosh.
That's who I was gonna bring up. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't been.
So that's kind of the one I remember once, because like they sold their channel to Defy like early in the YouTube days. So they had a big corporate, daddy very early in their kind of thing, and like they rode that way through, and then eventually it got to the point where Anthony left. They changed a lot about what was going on with their content, and eventually the company that owned them went under, taking the channel with it. Rhett and Link bought it, and kept it
on
going.
it now.
They did.
Oh.
Anthony recently came back, and actually they bought it back from Rhett and Link, and now they own it.
Oh, okay.
But that's like the one success story that I've kind of heard, like, on that trajectory of somebody selling their channel to, like, basically have more financial resources, but then basically the entire thing getting kind of fucked by the corporate entity.
Yeah, and that worked out, like, just because of Rhett and Link. Because, to my understanding, like, the shutdown with Defy, like, that happened, like, overnight. Like, people got texts like, hey, sorry, you don't have a job anymore, LOL. Like, it was, like, they didn't have any, like, precursor to it. Like, they just, like, shut it down. And, like, a bunch of people just didn't have jobs anymore, which I'm like, I feel like should be illegal. That's crazy to me, but it happens pretty frequently.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and defend Warner Brothers, obviously.
No.
But I believe Rooster Teeth's still operating through the month of May. Obviously, the podcast stuff they're doing is still going. And the one thing I will say about the Discovery side, they do give decent severance packages whenever they do this. Typically, they just like, look, we'll basically give you paychecks for the next 6 months. And everything after closing. Like, they give decent severance packages, so I will give them kind of credit for that.
They know how to fire a person.
They should do.
Well, and the reason they know how to fire a person is because it's just like, we expect you maybe to be back after, however many months, and then come back and start just doing something else within the company. That's kind of how they operate.
Okay.
Like, David Zaslav doesn't want you to hate him.
Big boomer vibes there. Please don't hate me. I know I'm gutting this company and I am firing everyone, but please don't hate me.
But we're a family.
I actually have been getting recruiter emails actually recently, and I got one literally the other day. It was basically for Discovery, and it was basically for my old job.
Oh,
is what it was. Like,
right.
they changed the name of it. Like, it's like some kind of like random thing, but like you look at the job description and what I'd be doing, it's like, this is basically my old job. You want me to come back and be a contractor for my old job where I was a senior on it.
That's
And like,
how they get you.
Yeah.
That independent contractor, man.
And so I sent it to a buddy of mine who actually is still there. He's the one who kind of stuck out through the layoff period, and apparently they never got rid of him because
they couldn't find him. He was in the walls.
Yeah.
But
I sent it to him, and he was just like, that's hilarious. Also, like, they're expecting another round of layoffs coming pretty soon, but they're also talking about working with Disney and also possibly merging with Paramount.
Okay.
Which I think is public knowledge at this point, but like...
I want Warner Brothers and Universal to merge and then them to do a Wacky Racer style movie with all of their IPs. That's all I want.
And then for the entire thing to implode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In that order.
That's the goal, truly.
But no, like...
As long as I get my modern Wacky Racers, I'm happy.
But again, kind of like, it's interesting how seems to be the trajectory of a lot of like legacy online content. Talking about the Smosh, SourceFed went for the same thing.
Oh, geez, SourceFed.
Yes, Rooster Teeth now is like the latest victim of it. There seems to be this kind of trajectory where like you either have to buy into a corporate entity to just be financially secure, or you have to try and do everything yourself and grow organically and then get burnt out completely and just stop doing it. If you want to make online content.
Like MatPat, right?
Yeah.
When's his last day? It's soon, isn't it?
I think
Coming
you're
up.
right. I'm not subscribed to them.
Yeah.
It's like, I watch it occasionally, but I do like him, and I'm glad he can retire and like take care of his family. That's the goal, ideally.
Yeah.
So that's how it should be.
Like, I have absolutely zero expectations, again, of us ever making money off of this, but if there's ever, like, a time where, like, a corporate entity comes in and is like, hey, we want to give you millions and millions of dollars to
We're
basically...
selling out immediately. We are cashing that
I got
check.
bills to pay.
Exactly, but, like, that's the thing. It's just, like, when you're in that position, how do you say no to that?
Of course.
Yeah.
In this economy, genuinely, like, I don't think I'll ever retire. So if that maybe gets me to possible retirement.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, a lot of these people have multiple employees. Like, they have editors, they've
Yeah.
got people that need to take care of. So, signing up with a larger company is like, I can provide for the people who are
Yeah.
looking to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's the thing where it's just like, if we try to do this independently, like, it's just like, maybe if we started getting ad revenue, I'd have to start hiring an accountant. Maybe I have to consider legal stuff because, we're going to be licensing and doing kind of like random things. And like, I don't want to be editing all the time. So, like, have to hire an editor. You start growing in that path. And it's just like, I don't know if I'm going to make payroll this week.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do I need to take out a huge business loan just to keep this thing afloat? Or can I just get corporate daddy to come in and just, throw money on me?
Yeah, makes sense.
Like what are your options? Yep. And
Yeah.
so this kind of leads into kind of a thing that me and Seth wanted to talk about. G4 tried to kind of come back a few years back.
Yes.
In kind of a new media style way where they were operating predominantly on YouTube and Twitch, doing multi-channels, bringing back stuff like Attack of the Show and X-Play. And needless to say, it failed spectacularly.
Yes. Yeah, completely. Did you watch the new Attack or the new X-Play at all?
I did watch some of it. I tried to stick with it as long as I could, but like eventually it just it never hooked.
Yeah. I was completely I knew it was coming back, but I didn't know the date that it was starting on. So I came back to it pretty late in its re-existence. And the thing I noticed in the episode I watched is that no one seemed like they liked each other, and no one seemed like they wanted to be there. It was just a mess. It was a 3-hour version of what they used to do in an hour. Like, it was just bad.
So here's some of the things that they did. One, they tried to bring back legacy people, which basically ended up just being Kevin Pereira and Adam Sessler were basically.
Well, Kevin owned it.
Did he own it? I thought it was Blair Herter who.
I think it was Kevin and Blair together bought the rights to the name G4 and Attack.
Okay, but they still had backing from Comcast at the time, didn't they?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how the deal worked out, but I remember listening to Kevin's podcast, and he was talking about it for like years. I'm trying to buy the name. I finally bought the name. Okay, we're bringing this back. And I'm like, Kevin, stop. It's been almost a decade.
Yeah.
Just leave it.
Here's the thing he should have done. He should have just kept doing his own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Just keep doing your own thing and like develop off that. That's what I want to see a lot of the Rooster Teeth people do. Is like, look, just do your guys' own thing, secure your own, sponsorships and like brand deals and stuff like that, and just keep your own thing going. Don't tie yourself to basically what you did in the past because it's not going to work.
Yeah.
The internet moves too quickly for that. I think that I only saw a couple clips of like the new G4 stuff, but I'm like, I remember watching it when like I was in my 20s or whenever that was, on TV, and like that was what the format was at the time. But the format has changed 800 times since that show existed, and you can't just like bring that back and hope that it'll be like survive on nostalgia alone, because that's not gonna work. Like the internet time changes so quickly, and like I can't imagine who would still want that. I didn't even know this was happening until now, so it's just like you gotta keep up.
But kind of like jumping over to like what I was kind of going at before, where it's just like they had like basically the couple of legacy people who they come in. They try to bring in people who are like more quote unquote in the space, and so they brought in people from like esports, people who are notorious Twitch streamers. They had
the Completionist was on there.
Yeah, the Completionist was on there from YouTube. They brought in a couple of other YouTube personalities who I recognize. Kasim G was on there, which I was just like, Kasim G still alive?
Oh.
He still exists.
I know they were trying to get Scott the Laws to do something for them. I don't know if that ever.
Yeah.
So good, right?
So good. Too good for them, probably.
But they had like so many an amalgamation of people, but like also people who like had their own things going. So I was just kind of like I understood like you're trying to get new people in on top of like people who like are nostalgic for this, but it just never quite got that vibe, and it was like so many other things, and like let's be honest, some of Kevin Pereira's antics from back in the day don't fly today.
Oh, absolutely not.
And you could
Yeah.
see that with a lot of some of the female hosts that were on Attack, where it's just like where Kevin tried to do kind of some of the stuff they used to do back in the day, and none of them were having it.
Yeah, and that's something I modeled a lot, and being a fan of him and watching him through the years, I was like, dude, you got to grow up. You got to stop doing this shit. And that was back in 2015, where I'm like, dude, this doesn't fly. You got to stop.
Yeah, and that was kind of like one of those things where it's just kind of like, I think we're basically the G4 thing. But I was like, it's okay for us to have a nostalgia for a thing that was very impactful for us in our youth, but at the same time, also being able to look back on it and go like, I'm past this. Like, you know, there are some things that I can let go of, and like, yeah, I miss that kind of thing. But there's just some things where it's just like I've outgrown. Like, you know, we were all on the LTA, you know, thing. It's just like I outgrew Philip DeFranco very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And like
so
I
did
feel like we all did, and like that's fine. It's like I have no ill will to him as a person, but I'm just kind of like I kind of just outgrew your style of content, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so it's one of those things where it's just like I feel like some people need to kind of understand that like you have to let your content grow and go in a different direction. I think Markiplier is a great example of somebody who has more or less adapted his content as he's gone. Like he still does silly, weird, kind of slapsticky type things, but like if he kept doing what he was doing like back in 2015, there's no way he would still be relevant on the internet right now.
Oh yeah, no. You have to be able to adapt to the changes, or else you're just gonna fade away.
Yep. It's weird watching like some people who I used to watch on YouTube, like, you know, 5, 8, even 10 years ago. And some of them are even coming back now, but like they're just like, we have kids and I live on a farm and do all this other kinds of stuff where it's just like before it's just like you were just, you know, gamer girl playing Borderlands that I was just like watch every now and again. And now like you have this entire like character arc that has happened while I was.
Or you're like Toby Turner and you became a psycho, so.
Oh man, that pipeline was... Yeah, that one was insane.
I still can't believe it sometimes. And I'm like, I have a picture with him and I'm like, I could probably just delete this. I don't think I want anyone to know that I ever
what platform did I post
with
this
Chris
on?
Hardwick.
Ooh.
Yeah, I did delete that one recently.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, going back. Yeah. Don't meet your heroes, because even if they don't disappoint you in the moment, they might disappoint you down the line.
Yup.
Yep.
So, moral of the story, folks, is continue to grow as a person. Don't be an asshole.
And quit while you're ahead.
Always. And, you know, maybe don't do things or send things to people on the internet you shouldn't do or send.
Yes. All consent is mandatory, friends. Let's just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Consent is mandatory.
All right. So, anyways, sad to see kind of legacy content stuff kind of go away, but at the same time, we can all grow as people as time moves on. Speaking of time moving on and being very, very sad, this week marked the passing of This week marked the passing of Akira Toriyama, famed anime and manga artist mostly known for the Dragon Ball series. He also worked on things such as Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, and was very highly influential in Japanese animation. This basically has been all my For You page feeds on pretty much all platforms the last couple of days. I grew up watching a lot of Dragon Ball. Obviously, Toonami basically had it constantly going through. I remember staying up late at night watching Toonami and like catching Dragon Ball episodes, and then that leading into Adult Swim and the stuff that I shouldn't have been watching as a child. I remember renting the VHSs at the Hollywood Video to watch over the weekends. I remember spending a lot of time. I bought some of the mangas even before in the past, and it was just like, a big part of my childhood kind of, passing for that. Yeah, so it kind of sucks, but it's good to see everybody kind of appreciating the legacy that it leaves behind. Seth, is there kind of like any Dragon Ball thing that, kind of relates to you?
I wasn't allowed to watch Dragon Ball growing up because my Christian
you and
parents
your
thought
poor Christian asshole.
They thought when they were going Super Saiyan that it was Super Satan, and that's why I wasn't allowed to watch the show.
I'm about to say,
not kidding.
I was about to say, like, it's not the Jesus imagery that they constantly have with Goku, like,
No.
Or was it because it was Japanese? Yeah, Satan. When they turn into a giant ape.
Thing. Yeah, that's too close to evolution. We can't have that. No, my parents let me watch Yu-Gi-Oh! They let me watch Pokemon. They let me watch everything but Dragon Ball Z. That was the only thing. I got to watch Adult Swim.
What?
I was about to say, there was way more atheism in Adult Swim than there was in Dragon Ball, but okay. Brie, you were talking about
religion
how
doesn't have to make sense.
Does it ever?
No.
Brie, you were mentioning how your
things about
partner brought it
Buddhism.
up for you.
Yes, I to be honest, personally, I don't have a really relationship with Dragon Ball or any of those series at all. It was always on before the show I actually wanted to watch was on. Like usually, like especially like Yu Yu Hakusho was on at like 5:30.
I was about to say you were waiting for Sailor Moon to come on after Dragon Ball.
I've never seen Sailor Moon. Fun fact. So, maybe I should.
Tuxedo Mask is a dreamy. He's a dreamy.
He's a dreamy,
All right.
dreamy boat.
Emily's more of a Sailor Jupiter.
I like the gay
Fair.
ones. Are they all gay?
I mean, yeah, they're kind of queer icons.
Depends on if you're watching the sub or the dub. In the dub, they're cousins. In the
Oh, yeah.
sub, they're dating.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That is good to know.
I'm gonna take the Japanese version to be the canon version in this case, and not the Alabama version.
Yes, for love of God. Yeah, it's sad because he was not that old. Like I was just looking. I was like, he's younger than my parents. That's very sad that he passed away. Like 68 is not old at all. So that's very sad. But he was fighting an illness, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so.
he had a melanoma, so it's cancer, basically.
That's
so
sad.
fuck you, cancer. But no, like it's interesting because like you look back at Dragon Ball and it's super influential, not just in Japanese anime, but specifically just how animation works kind of almost across the world, and like made Japanese animation actually like global. Like it was everywhere. And some of the tropes that they
even as someone who didn't watch it, I couldn't escape it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very specifically like a lot of the tropes and some of the like kind of sensibilities that were kind of like brought up from Dragon Ball basically still exist today. Filler episodes, like in how their kind of structure, characterizations, basic kind of story plot points, like a lot of it gets traced back to Dragon Ball and what was done, and so it's a very incredible legacy. I actually rewatched Dragon Ball Z Abridged actually like a month ago. And like I would recommend it to you guys as like a quick like crash course to Dragon Ball, but like Dragon Ball Z Abridged really is like you have to be a fan of Dragon Ball Z before watching it to like really understand the humor, because it is a fan parody made by fans for fans. It's not like a good introduction to the show.
Fair.
No. If it's anything like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, then yeah, it's not a good
like,
introduction.
All the jokes are kind of like very referential and like things that like another fan would joke about. Was just like, man, Krillin and Yamcha suck, don't they? Let's make jokes about how much they suck. And like make jokes about how Goku is such a bad dad.
That is one thing I know. I know he's a shit father.
He's busy. It's fine.
He's got to get that hair perfect.
Of course.
And it takes him 3 episodes to get through a single fight.
Well, the joke is basically...
I know some things.
Well, like, the joke basically is every time there's, like, a strong guy to fight, he's just like, all right, wife and child, I'm off to go into space to fight this big, strong guy. I'll be back in 50 years. Like, actually, one of the jokes in the, like, most recent they did the Boo Saga things, and like the joke, like at the end of that, he's like he leaves to go train somebody else, and they were just kind of like, yeah, go ahead, and they were just kind of, he was like, really, you guys are cool with me leaving? It's like, yeah, we've had you for 15 years. I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit much.
Yeah, everyone wants their dad to come back from getting that pack of cigarettes and milk, but when he actually does, we're better off without him.
Pretty much. As a child of divorced parents, it's like the whole thing is like, don't you wish your parents were still back together? It's just like, no. That would be horrible. Who asked for this?
God, things would be so much worse.
It's like, you think I have trauma now? Could you imagine if that kept going?
Goodness.
We're all mentally healthy here at Internet Friends. Especially the cat. The cat's having a good time.
Theo's loving it. He's just...
Theo's like, this is the best show on the internet. In my opinion.
He does like that I'm in one place for a very long time. He's like, this is great. I know exactly where she is.
She's not trying to get away from me. She's staying at one spot. I'm getting all the pets I could possibly want. My brother's on the bed, minding his own goddamn business for once.
Truly. Living their best lives, these two.
All right. Well, that pretty much covers any topics we kind of have listed. If there's anything you guys kind of want to talk about externally.
I'm excited for my homework.
I'm good. Yeah.
All right. Well, we now have done all individual homework projects for everything, which means we're back to Brie and her next homework project.
Yes. I'm hoping you haven't seen this, but I think it's decently possible you have. Have you watched She-Ra Princesses of Power, like the 2019?
Yeah, I've watched it with Emily.
No, I haven't.
Well, then we'll do that.
All right. What's it on?
It's on Netflix, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I'm excited to rewatch it. So.
Yeah, no. Emily watched it. I think we watched it over COVID.
That is when I watched it too. So, and I forced my partner to watch it too, and he's like, he wasn't really into it, and then he watched the entire thing like without me later. He's like, yeah, this actually slaps. I was like, I know
it's one of those things where Emily just always had it on in the room, and it was one of those things where it's just like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, I think it's 5 seasons. So let me I don't know how long each season is. Let me just check really quick.
It wasn't that long.
It's not
Clone Wars. It's not Clone Wars.
It's 10 episodes, or excuse me, 13 episodes per season, it looks like. So that's pretty good. So yeah, if you guys want to try for season 1, I will just warn you, which I think is like with most shows, like the pilot episode episode 1 is a little rough. Like it's just like the
first season of everything is like not always the best representation of a show. It's always just like they're fleshing out the ideas of what they want to do, and like hopefully, they continue to get to do it. But
yes,
as a Doctor Who fan who got through the first episode, Rose, pilot episodes don't get much worse than that one, so I think I'll be fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, and like I'm sure like after rewatching the first season, like my memory will jog for everything else that comes subsequently, at least the main like plot beats.
Yeah, I'm like, if you want to watch more, by all means, because I'll probably just rewatch the entire thing because I fucking love this show, but I'm excited for y'all to watch it.
Is there anything you want us to spend any extra attention on when it comes to it?
If you have a moment to just like kind of take a look at these, like especially if you're not, I don't know how familiar you are with like the original like He-Man, but like especially how they updated a lot of the characters, I'd love for you to like just look up the old character designs if you're not familiar with them and see how they updated them for this show, because I think that'll make for a good discussion. And also, if once you watch the first season, you might want to go back and see some of the discourse about this show, because there was a lot of discourse about this show when it first came out. So, yeah.
You just love talking about fan discourse, don't you?
It's this one's a little more like just sexism, unfortunately, but
sexism, homophobia, all that. Yeah, like the greatest hits in our culture war. Thanks, Fox News.
Truly.
There's a fox in my backyard.
Nice.
Cool.
Right, sorry, I got real excited there.
That's all good. There was a giant hawk actually chilling outside the window. It's like, thank God Fox is at his grandparents' house right now, because he'd be losing his goddamn mind if he saw it.
Oh no.
Animals.
Yep.
Sorry.
Sounds good. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I am TCK Media Productions on most social media platforms. Seth is that Seth over on TikTok.
That's F23.
That's F23. Brie is Raccoon over on Instagram and Twitch. We really need to figure out what we want to play on Twitch together. Seth, have you gone on Helldivers yet?
No, I haven't.
I thought about it today, but I'm still not there yet.
I'm thinking about it.
I feel like
I
I feel like by the time I hop into it, like the entire fad's gonna be over. That's typically how my video game trajectory goes.
Same.
That's what I'm feeling too. And also, Battlefront comes out in a couple days. So
I keep forgetting that. Is that gonna be on Steam?
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe we could get on that one together. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
See if
I've
there's
been playing
crossplay.
Story, so I don't know what y'all are on about.
Well, me and Emily are playing Baldur's Gate tonight, so Brie, if you want to join me and Emily on Baldur's Gate.
Oh, nice. You're fun.
And then Seth, download Baldur's Gate.
All right. I'm thinking about it.
Fair enough. All right, well, you guys have a good one. I appreciate you joining me, and we'll see you all later.